Okay, welcome to this session about NFTs. And most of you know the term NFTs by now. For a lot of people, it's still NFT what? What does it mean? What does it mean for the future? And where do we go with NFTs? And how did this sudden rise actually happen with NFTs? And it all started with a rock. Basically, the reason why we collect things, it's because it's kind of engraved in our DNA. We used to just collect things because they might be helpful for us to survive. And that's really where all of this collecting things comes from. Now, for the first time, we are able to collect things digitally. And just like Justin's son here, he just spent $500,000 on a rock. I found it to be really funny, and it's true. So he spent $500,000 on this image of a rock, which is just a JPEG, if you will. So anyone can just copy this image, anyone can steal this image. So what the hell, why would you do something like this? And it continued with CryptoPunks. Some of you might have heard this term before. And CryptoPunks were some of the first collectibles, NFTs. And this Larva Labs, this CryptoPunk 7523 was sold for almost $12 million in an auction by Sotheby's. And if we go further down the line, we have Beeple, this crazy image, which is a collection of his first 5,000 days creating art. And the price realized was almost 70 million US dollars, and this was an auction by Christie's. So what's happening here? Like, how did we get to these numbers? How do people even see value in digital art or in digital possessions? How does this all make sense? So we're going to be exploring. Oh, there's some stuff missing here. Anyway. So we'll be exploring the whole NFT space, basically a little bit of the history, what NFTs are, what they are technically representing. And at the end, all the way to the end, we will ask ourselves the question, when will the bubble burst? Okay, here we go. So what is an NFT? Where did NFTs come from? Why are they so important? How do they work? And we're going to look at the NFT ecosystem and again, ask ourselves, when will the bubble burst? So what is an NFT? So NFT stands for non-fungible token, and most of you will think like, okay, what the hell does that mean? So non-fungible just means that it is unique and it can't be replaced with something else. Now, in the case of NFTs, because they're digital, it means that it is a unique digital asset. So you could also think of it as a cryptocurrency with a quantity of one. So for example, if you have one Ethereum and I have one Ethereum, they're not unique, right? My Ethereum looks the same as your Ethereum. We both have the same thing. But if I have an NFT and you have another NFT that represent the same thing, they're not exactly the same. And I'm going to show you how this actually works. And for now, NFTs, they exist primarily on the Ethereum blockchain, but there's a lot of other blockchains coming up for different kind of reasons. So what I was talking about before is that you have, for example, these two images. This was an addition from this art piece that had multiple pictures. So this is number 4 and this is number 5. So they're actually identical, but at the same time, they're not, because one image is number 4 and one is number 5. So even though they look the same, they have a different key, and on the blockchain, they are different and not the same. So the categories of NFTs, so there's a lot of categories for NFTs, but the main ones and this is kind of ranked from left to right, from the biggest right now to the smallest. The biggest are collectibles, and that is actually not really a big surprise, because with collectibles, you can make the most amount of money, I would say, right now. So there's kind of a big buzz because most of the people involved in NFTs now, they come from the crypto space. They have lots of money to spend because there's really nothing to spend your crypto on sometimes, depending on where you live and where you're at. The second big thing is art, and upcoming now are games and the Metaverse. And what is really important to understand is what makes actually the value of an NFT, and that this formula applies basically to anything. So value is scarcity, plus utility, plus reputation, plus liquidity. So what does this actually exactly mean? So scarcity is pretty logical. If you only have one cookie in the room and everyone wants a cookie, that cookie becomes more valuable. Utility is very important because utility means how can you use this thing, right? So right now, and that's why most people don't understand NFTs, is the utility is not very clear. So you have collectibles, art. The utility of art in itself is kind of like a very strange concept. Same for the collectibles. So right now the utility is, I would say, is the biggest kind of differentiator why NFTs are not clear to everyone. But they're coming up with games and the metaverse. So in games, NFTs will have a huge utility, and I will show you that later. And then reputation is very simple. If Snoop Dogg buys an art piece, an NFT, the whole collection will rise up in price immediately because, of course, he has a strong reputation, and then the reputation of that project will go up. But first, just some fundamentals and the leading blockchains for NFTs. The leading blockchains are Ethereum, Ronin, which comes from Axie Infinity, the game. Then we have Flow, Polygon, Wax, BSC. But you see most of it is happening on Ethereum right now. And the total sales volume up until this point is almost 10 billion. This is depending on the source, but some speak of like 12 billion or 10, so it depends a little bit. But it's quite important to see that this is actually a very low number compared to the rest of the crypto market, especially the 24-hour trading volume, which is around 100 million. It's pretty small still at this point. And what is even more important to realize when we look at this graph here is those are the sales up until this point. And we see that, it was pretty constant up until the beginning of this year when we had the bull run. And especially when cryptocurrencies in general were not doing so well in July, for example, in August, actually NFTs were doing really well. And I think that's an indicator that NFTs are still following the general kind of like bull market and bear market, but they kind of have a little bit of their own little breakouts. And that's very important later on in this presentation, as you will see. And for the price range, most of the NFTs right now are between $100 and $1,000. It's quite significant that still 20% are between 1,000 and 10,000. That surprised me. But you see most of the NFTs are in the range between $100 and 10,000. So there are some that are over $1 million, but it's really, really a small amount. But of course, those are the NFTs that make headlines. So where did NFTs actually come from? I'm gonna keep this short. Just for the reason that I don't think it's as important as the future. There's actually a really good article on OpenSea on their blog about the history of NFTs if you want to go deep into it. But basically, just in short, we didn't have NFTs really until Ethereum came along. So before, when Bitcoin was there, we had colored coins, which was kind of like, if you decide this is an NFT, this Satoshi is an NFT, and I decide this Satoshi is an NFT, then it's an NFT. But if one of us would change their mind, it would not be an NFT anymore. So you see, it's a really stupid concept, so it doesn't really work. And then Counterparty was one of the first kind of exchanges that started this whole idea. So in 2015, they had Spells of Genesis, a game on Counterparty, which featured kind of the first trades of an NFT. 2016, they had trading cards and counterparties and rare pepes, which you see here on the right, this guy. So that was the first kind of collectibles that ever existed. And then 2017, we had CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties, which were the first large collections. And then from 2018 onwards to now, we had all these marketplaces coming up and literally an NFT explosion, if you will, if you look at the numbers. So the big question is, okay, why are NFTs so important in this whole crypto realm? So for one thing for sure is art, and the traditional art world is very conservative. So they are not really the ones that are pushing the adoption. the adoption is really pushed through the auction houses like Christie's, for example, because for the auction houses, it doesn't matter exactly what kind of exchange is happening. For them, it's just important that an exchange is happening. So they don't really care if it's crypto or if it's not crypto. But of course, if you're a gallery, you expect fiat money most of the time. So most of the galleries are not on the train yet, but most of them will follow suit and add NFT sections to their websites, simply because if the rest of the market is doing it, they will have to do it too. The crypto marketplaces are growing rapidly too, and digital artists really lead this crypto adoption. So they're taking big chunks of the art market away, and just, yeah, sales like the $70 million sales. I think that was like the third or fourth biggest art sale in history. So it really changes quite a lot in the art world. And one important thing is the metaverse. So the metaverse is a set of virtual spaces where you can create and explore with other people who aren't in the same physical space as you. It exists already in the form of, for example, Facebook, different kind of, you may know Second Life, for example, used to be a metaverse, but it's important for NFTs. Especially if we look at gaming, or, you know, Second Life, I wouldn't really call it a game. It is really more like a metaverse. And this is a legacy project. So this is coming from the old world. It's not a blockchain project. But just looking at the stats, they had 70 million people who registered for it. And right now they don't have a lot of users anymore because it's old, just 200,000. But what is important, their GDP is like equivalent to $600 million. So that's really interesting because people actually poured money into this game, and the locked value in there is like 600 million. It's possible to take money out of this economy, but it's very complicated because you pay a lot of fees doing this, and the problem is it's not a real economy. So it's kind of based on this software developer, and they're kind of acting as a central bank, and it's very dodgy. It's kind of strange. Like they tried to make casinos and it didn't work out at all because it just blew the whole economy. And so it doesn't really work perfectly. And if you look at the project, also like a legacy gaming project, if we just look at the revenue they have, 5.1 billion, you see that this is just one game with 5.1 billion. Right now, the whole NFT market is 10 billion. So you can just see how much potential there is if you could bring a real economy into a game. And that's where we're kind of going now. And that is very interesting for me, because if you look, for example, at Axie Infinity just last week, the project blew up like crazy. And they've been doing very well during the summer. So even though it was kind of bearish, the whole market, and not much was going on, this project was just growing. And the reason for this is because they have actually a really strong utility. So NFTs are used in this project. You can buy the Axie token. And with the Axie tokens, you can breed those little monsters within the game. And each little monster is an NFT. And this NFT can be sold on the marketplace, wherever. It can be sold in-game, but also outside of the game. And so that is really interesting, because what they did is they kind of made the access to this game quite easy for people from third world countries, so they can actually earn money within this game. And this is kind of where I want to go with this whole metaverse, is that with those games and with the metaverse, you can actually combine NFTs, decentralized finance, in those metaverses, in those little bubbles of metaverses, and you can create economies. And that is actually pretty incredible, because it means that people can be employed in a game. It means that you could create a business in a game, and the game represents just a little bubble of the metaverse at this point. You don't have to think as a metaverse as this huge thing. I think it will just start as small bubbles, and it's like a portal you go through. You're in the Axie in an infinity metaverse, and this is where you can make money, create value, and be creative. And up until now, they already had 2 billion in sales with this game, which is incredible. If you look at if you compare it to all the other games that came before. And digital assets is also very important. So you will be able to buy land. So this is, for example, in Decentraland, you can buy land there, you can buy clothes, you can buy masks, you can even buy names. So there will be a lot of items that you can buy in those metaverses. And that's really interesting, because the NFTs have a real utility. And that kind of makes it a really cool thing, because it doesn't matter anymore if it's bear market or bull market. If the utility is there, those projects will just be growing. And some other future appliances, there is a lot of inefficiencies, for example, in documentation of things. So if you have a deed of a house, ownership documents of a car, you have to verify those documents all the time with a centralized entity. So if you could attach an NFT to it, you wouldn't need this process or those steps anymore, and it could even work internationally. So that's another thing that will come up in the future. Also with trade, for example, shipments, you could put an NFT on a shipment to make sure that this is really that it is authentic from point A to point B, wherever it goes. Proof of ownership for commodities, for example, gold, you can attach an NFT to a piece of gold that you send around. And also, for example, in fashion, you have a lot of problems with counterfeits. So you could also have digital records of authenticity for there. So that was kind of why are NFTs super important. You might understand already now where this is kind of going, but how do NFTs actually work? An NFT is technically minted through smart contracts, and they just assign ownership and they manage the transferability of the NFTs. So they are most usually now minted on the Ethereum blockchain. And when someone creates or mints an NFT, they just execute the code that is stored in the smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. And so once you mint it, this information is added to the blockchain where the NFT is being basically managed automatically. And what is really special about NFTs is that each token that you mint, it has a unique identifier that is directly linked to one Ethereum address. So it's not possible to just exchange this, like I mentioned in the beginning, with something else. It is a unique asset that has a very unique address that cannot be compared to another address one by one. And it's very important that each token has an owner and this information is easily verifiable. That's actually kind of the selling point of it. And it's cool because if you create your own NFT, you can determine the scarcity. So you can say, I want an edition of 10, 5, 10,000, whatever you want. You can earn royalties every time it's sold. So that's a big selling point for artists. You can sell it on any NFT market or peer-to-peer. So you don't have to, sell it on OpenSea. You can sell it on a different marketplace if you want to, or you can just send it to another person, whatever. You can just meet someone in a bar and make a deal. That's your thing. And creating an NFT is easier than you might think, actually, because the easiest way to create an NFT is through a marketplace such as Rarible, OpenSea, and much more. So there's a lot of them. I'm going to show you them. And all you need is basically you need a cryptocurrency. Usually now it's Ethereum. You need a wallet to store it, MetaMask or something like that. And then you just need the content to tokenize. So right now, this is a little bit limited to images, to sound files, or to videos. And the marketplace the marketplace you choose, I think OpenSea is the biggest one. They have really good information on how to do this. So it's not that complicated to do, actually. You can just follow their instructions. And now if you look at the NFT ecosystem, as you've seen before, we have collectibles. Those are the biggest right now. We have arts and music, audios, for example, which is kind of like a Spotify copy, but decentralized based on blockchain. We have games, which super important in the future. We have kind of DeFi to tie it all together. And we have sports, for sure. You heard of Top Shot. They also had like kind of their trading cards that went super viral. And yeah, we have the infrastructure, all the blockchains where all of this is happening, and the marketplaces here. So the top NFT marketplaces, as I said before, is OpenSea is the biggest one. Foundation is fun because this one is quite new and it blew up to be the second biggest one. We have Rarible, Super Rare. So usually what the marketplaces do, they have different ways of curating art. They have different ways of presenting it and different ways of collaborating with artists. So that's why you have those different ones, but it's worth checking out any of them if you're looking to create an NFT. Another big question, when will the bubble burst? And really happy to take on this question because I've been asking myself, is this really a bubble? And it is, yes, it is a bubble and it's not a bubble. So it is a bubble in a way that right now there are probably a lot of art projects that are being pushed that if there's a bear market, they might just die out. So it's very risky to just buy art and think, oh, it's going to blow up or whatever. You really need to know what you're doing. So I think there are a lot of projects that will die in a bear market. But like I said before, if you think about utility, if you think about this formula that we were looking at before, if there is a utility for the NFT, and for me, I'm 100% sure it's going to go, games are going to go crazy, because this combination of DeFi, of advancement in technology, you know, it's very easy to create games, easier than it used to be. And if you combine all of this with the technology that is happening right now, the utility for games is very strong. So I could imagine that games will actually last through a bear market, and that those coins are actually much safer than some random collectible that we're getting into now. So now most of the sales are happening in collectibles, but it will shift to games in the future, in the near future. And it's still super small. So if you're interested in NFTs and interested in games, it's a good place to go look at. And this is just kind of a look out in the future. Also, why it is not a bubble is this is from Will Warren. He's from Zero X project. And so we have protocol tokens. Those are kind of the base layers. And he says in 10 years, we're going to have 1,000 of them. Traditional assets, we're going to have 1 million of them. Internet communities like personal tokens, for example, what Unit is doing, 100 million. Prediction markets are going to be 1 billion, and digital collectibles and NFTs are going to be 100 billion. So you see, this is actually probably the biggest thing in the future are going to be NFTs, because you're going to have game items, domains, licenses, keys, physical access. So you could open up your car with your phone, for example, in a safe way by putting an NFT on your car, whatever, loyalty points. So there's a lot of things that we cannot see right now, but it's very interesting to just keep your eyes open on that space. Yeah, and thanks for tuning in. With the QR code here, you get to the Unit network where you find a lot of other cool information. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can just shoot. Still gonna be here 5 more minutes.
Yay, Sam, congrats. We have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Somebody's asking, what's your vision for the future? And the second question is, do you see the NFTs moving largely from ETH to other blockchains, such as Polygon, in coming years?
So the first question with the other blockchains, I think a lot of games are, especially if they build big economies, like Star Atlas, for example, is a game that is trying to build like a huge economy. I could see that they're moving to other blockchains, simply because they might be faster than Ethereum and because of the gas fees and everything. Some projects like Axie Infinity actually just created their own blockchain, which is even more preferable, right? So they can kind of control how much is the gas fee, and it also makes the access easier for third world countries, because I think this is really where they're going. Because someone in the Philippines could earn, during Corona, they earned 3 times as much with Axie Infinity as they would in their normal job that they could not visit because of Corona, because they couldn't leave the house. So this is really the emerging markets where those games are actually kind of finding their first players. And yeah, my vision for NFTs in the future, that's really kind of, Praveen wrote it, the Ready Player One kind of metaverse. I guess this is where it's gonna be going in the end, but it will take a lot of time until we are in a place where we have like one huge metaverse. I think that will take a lot of time, just based on all the people I spoke with, just because of the technical limitations. And I could imagine that Facebook is going to make the first step towards this, or Google, so one of the big corporations, and they might have their own cryptocurrencies. So we'll see. It's very difficult to say at this point, but what is for sure is people spend a lot of time and money for metaverses already before. So you have $500 million locked in Second Life, and people just spent their money there without having a return. So if people are crazy about this, for sure they're going to be crazy if they can get the money back or get a better return even. And yes, NFTs are the NFTs programmable in the sense that every time it is sold, X number of trees are planted. Yeah, all of this is actually possible. So I think also NFTs could be a very good way in helping climate change, because you could exactly create rewards for exactly this type of situations where someone in the emerging world would actually do something good, would plant a tree or something like this. Of course, you would need to have systems that kind of check on this to verify that they actually did that. But 100% it will be possible to actually track. Also, if you buy a piece of clothing, sometimes here in Switzerland, there's a brand that they plant a tree for every piece of clothing. So you have no idea where exactly this tree is. You could actually, just put a QR code on the tree and attach an NFT to it. So I think that's going to be actually a major way on how to reverse climate change, is by directly incentivizing actually doing something good for the planet, like you get paid directly. I think that's a huge way how we could do this. And yes, the World NFT Forum, we're going to have the World NFT Forum very soon. And we're going to be talking about all of this and more with cool people. And hold on. Oopsie. So that's on the 19th of October. Just have to double check.
Yes, Sam, what awaits us at the World NFT Forum October 19th?
Yes, thank you very much. And going to give over to the next speaker.
That's me.
That's you, okay.
You still have 2 minutes. Can you give us an idea, wrap up for what awaits us for World NFT Forum October 19th?
Yeah, so we're going to have interesting speakers there that speak about all of those things that I talked about, but in more detail, because of course I'm not an expert in every corner of the ecosystem, and it's changing like crazy. Like I looked at ecosystem maps of early 2021 and they're not accurate at all anymore. So it's changing very rapidly. So we need people who are very knowledgeable in each of those areas, because it's impossible for one person to keep track of everything I learned.
Yeah. What ecosystem are you actually most excited about? Like in terms of NFT and marketplaces, where would you issue actually your own NFT? On which platform?
I'm actually waiting for a little bit for a unique network. I think I would looking forward to do it on the Polkadot network. Simply because I think it's interesting. There's a lot of new possibilities coming up there. Yeah, because I hate the gas fees in Ethereum. I hate it.
Sam and I actually issued an NFT.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Our first NFT we created together. Yeah.
Okay. Right.